The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus said to the apostles, "Who among you would say to your servant, who has just come in from plowing or tending sheep in the field, 'Come here immediately and take your place at table'? Would he not rather say to him, 'Prepare something for me to eat. Put on your apron and wait on me while I eat and drink. You may eat and drink when I am finished'? Is he grateful to that servant because he did what was commanded? So should it be with you. When you have done all you have been commanded, say, 'We are unprofitable servants. We have done what we were obliged to do.'" The Gospel of the Lord. How many natures does Jesus have? Two natures, human nature and divine nature. How many minds does Jesus have? How many souls does Jesus have? Not as easy of questions, are they? This is a very big question that came up in the 4th and 5th centuries in the church and has continued even into our day. Many of the different heresies that come up in church history are related to Jesus and how we are to understand Jesus. St. Leo the Great, whose feast we celebrate today, is one of the instrumental characters of church history who's helped us resolve some of these questions. When Christianity became legalized at the time of Constantine, like we talked about yesterday, all of a sudden many of these questions came up and they came out into the public forum. And many Christians were asking these questions, and so there had to be councils to discuss these, like the Council of Nicaea in 325, where the church proclaimed once and for all that Jesus was truly God, God from God, light from light. He was begotten, not made. There were some people in the church who were trying to claim that Jesus was not fully God. This was called the Arian heresy. It's the reason why we recite those specific lines in the Nicene Creed every week. Likewise, a century later, there was a heresy that came about called the Monophysite heresy, which is Greek for one nature. There were people saying that Jesus only had one nature because they couldn't comprehend the fact that Jesus could be both God and human at the same time. And so some people were saying that he was only God, some people were saying that he was only man. It was a confusing question. Into this controversy stepped St. Leo the Great, who was Pope in those days. And he wrote a massive theological work about this controversy. And eventually at the Council of Chalcedon, in the year 451, all of the bishops throughout the world accepted his teaching. And what exactly was his teaching? St. Leo the Great coined this theological term called the hypostatic union. Anybody heard of the hypostatic union? Yeah, the hypostatic union essentially is Greek meaning two natures in one person. So even though Jesus had two natures, he wasn't two people. He was one person who has two natures. And what does it mean when we say he has two natures? In the Creed every Sunday, we say that Jesus became man, and all of us bow during that part of the Creed. You ever wonder why we do that? We do that because it's mysterious. The incarnation is something we can never fully comprehend. We can only say certain things about it. And that's why we bow during the Creed every Sunday. We're acknowledging the mysteriousness of it. Mystery not meaning that it's irrational or that we know nothing about it, but simply that it's incomprehensible. We can never fully fathom it. In a similar way to every human person, in a sense, is an incomprehensible mystery. You're never going to be able to plumb the depths of every human existence, every human person. So St. Leo the Great He said that Jesus, the second person of the Trinity, is two natures. And when God, in the second person, whom we call Jesus, became man, it wasn't as if he ceased to be fully God when that happened. Rather, he assumed the human nature to himself. What does that look like exactly? Again, Fulton Sheen gives a great analogy of what this is like in the incarnation. Fulton Sheen gives this great analogy of a person writing on a marker board. If you write on a marker board, you take your hand, which is, you might say, is your divine nature, and you grab a marker and you begin to write. Without a hand, you couldn't write. Without a marker, you couldn't write. Those are the two natures. But you don't say that the hand wrote or the marker wrote. You say, I wrote. I'm the person. I'm a person utilizing two natures. That's what it was like with Jesus. Jesus is one person, and he utilizes a human nature and a divine nature. So he has both a divine mind and also a human mind with an intellect, will. He also has a human body. Everything that makes up a human, Jesus himself has taken to himself in the incarnation. And thank God he did, because if he had not fully assumed a human nature, then we as humans could never be fully redeemed. In order to redeem humans entirely, he had to assume everything that comes with human nature. Now, I don't know if any of this is interesting or fascinating to you. I think it's pretty interesting. I also think it sheds light on some theology. I think sometimes as Catholics, we kind of have this dumbed down view of the faith. Our faith is actually rather complex, rather sophisticated. And I think it would be good for us as Catholics to spend a little more time going deeper into some of these things. These theological questions are not always as easily resolved as we might think. And perhaps part of the reason why so many people are leaving the church is because they've never really fully asked these questions. And therefore they don't have the intellectual groundwork to defend their faith when problems and questions arise. Let us ask for the intercession of St. Leo the Great this day, that all of us might have a greater intellectual understanding of who Jesus is and what our faith teaches.